Welcome to Commander Community, the show where we discuss everything, the people, the places, the things, the ideas, and the inspirations beyond the tabletop of Magic the Gathering's most popular format, brought to you by Star City Games.
I'm Anthony Alonji.
And I'm Sheldon and Anthony. In each episode, we'll address one or more hot-button issues in the Commander community. We'll talk about Commander's current events, the intersection of our hobby of life in general, whether that's nerd culture, music, food, booze, really anything off the table is on the table.
And I'm 100% likely to ask Sheldon, how you doing today? And what the hell is wrong with you?
You know, I have to point out, Anthony, that we actually, since we've started Commander Community, we haven't really talked much about food and booze.
What the hell is wrong with us?
Yeah. So, we're recording this on a Sunday morning.
Maybe I'm having booze now. I'm not. I'm having tea.
We're recording this on a Sunday morning. For example, what did you drink last night?
So last night, what I had was a little bit of amaretto in memory of my mother. Just a little. I'll have a little bit of that. Maybe sometimes I have it in coffee. It's one of the few ways in which I drink coffee. Or sometimes I'll just mix it with a little something. But amaretto is my favorite drink of choice. How about yourself?
I drank a pretty spectacular small production Pinot Noir last night. I drank a Martinelli, a 2015 Martinelli Pinot Noir Bondi Home Ranch Water Trough Vineyard. So, wow. It's sourced from one of the tiny vineyards in the corner of their estate. Probably, 80 cases made or something like that.
And you just drank a little bit of it. It's gone now. It's all gone.
We Gretchen and I shared a bottle, so we drank some percentage of the world's stock of that particular wine. Yeah,
it's meant to be consumed. That's why people make it.
That's why it's there. In future episodes, I think we'll talk more about food and booze. Maybe some COVID related recipes that we've come up with or something like that.
Yeah, there have been a few of those have gone around.
Right.
We could do that.
But on the more serious stuff,
yes.
Over the seemingly past, I don't know, forever, there's been a new crisis every week. Banned offensive cars, evidence of racism and sexism, toxic behavior by previously well-regarded individuals, and all against the backdrop of the insanity that's going on in the world. I think this gets us into some kind of adrenaline-charged state, and we mobilize to address the current crisis, whether we're marshaling our own forces or gathering our friends. At the expense of the other things that still need fixing. Some of them might have been last week's crisis. So what do we do?
Right. We'd like to be helpful. We would like to ultimately provide advice. And it's only advice. It's not direction. We're not telling people how to be outraged or anything like that. What we're trying to do is try to help people understand how to get the most bang for your buck for your outrage buck. How can you get the most actual, change, bang for that? And I see, and I think you see as well, Sheldon, a lot of effort spent on things that they tend to be more symptoms rather than causes. They tend to be more surface things rather than deeper trends. Sometimes we see outrage go toward things that I would in the literature call for this sort of thing called technical issues rather than the systemic issues.
But
we're going to spend some time talking about that, I think, today.
Right, but I mean, the symptoms are the things we see, right?
Well,
it's the old alligator and swamp analogy, or If you
I think that's a Florida only analogy. Help me for that one.
If you can't, you can't take your NyQuil until you've blown your nose, kind of thing. So you have to deal with the symptoms, and that gives you the opportunity then to deal with the underlying causes.
That birder video from Central Park, the black birder who took a video of the racist white woman who threatened and then did call the cops on him for doing nothing, and then made her voice sound so, emotional and charged and under attack. That's a symptom. It's a symptom that very clearly leads to certain diagnoses of the cause. So it's and maybe symptoms and causes may help us a little bit with this, but I think that's not the only division. I think what's maybe more helpful is the language I was just starting to use about was more the technical, and it's more short term. They tend to be more short term bursts of things that are on the radar, rather than the systemic underlying stuff that's going to keep rolling until we try harder, right? And again, it's not, we don't know better. My interest is just providing a framework for folks.
Sure.
Just giving people a sense of maybe how to think about it, and then spend your time and your energy on anything you want, whatever. There's that old phrase like, I don't want to yuck your yum. I don't want to yuck your yuck either. I don't want to do any of that. What I want to do is help people understand maybe where the right levers and buttons are to move the machine, so that we can see less. When we see less of the systemic stuff, some of the technical stuff will also disappear. In the business world, you know this well, I know this well, I think others of our viewers know this well. There are things that we look at, we say, boy, is that process really screwed up. And sometimes you look at things and it's a process problem, and in about 15 minutes of sitting down in a meeting with people, you can kind of hammer it out. And sometimes you're talking about more like a people problem.
Right.
So sometimes these break down into process problems or people problems. And these splits are not perfect. None of these splits are perfect, but I think they're helpful in thinking about what's short-term versus long-term, what's symptomatic versus cause, what's, process versus people. So I think maybe we could do a little bit of exploring for people.
So why don't you offer up some real life examples of what fits into the various axes that you're laying out?
Sure. And so the main division, the main point is that dichotomy between the technical and the systemic. That's the main thing to remember. The other way of splitting it is in terms, for the purposes of this show, there's wizards, magic, gaming topics, and then there's the stuff that happens in real life. So yeah, if the folks at Star City Games want to help me out and do a 2x2 graph, they can. They don't have to, but it might be nice. I'm calling them out. I don't think they can do it. I don't think they have the ability to do it. It's just me talking. I don't know. I can't say for sure. 2x2 charts, they're hard to do.
I, on the other hand, have a great deal of faith in our graphics team.
Yeah, that's why you're probably going to get better graphics response than I am.
Well, if the graphics people can end up making me look good every week, then they're geniuses.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's not that hard, sir. Now, that said, the basic idea here of this 2x2 chart is obviously in one column you're going to have wizards and gaming topics, and the other one we're going to be talking about life or politics. We can talk about the wider world, right? So that's an easy division too.
Right.
The one we're kind of talking about in this show is kind of the cross-cutting one. So on the top row, you might think of the stuff that's the surface stuff, the stuff that you see all the time, the bendy foils, the companion mechanic that doesn't work over in the Wizards and Gaming column. And then in the other one, you have things like, boy, teleworking's really hard because of this, this new way we have to work, or I have really difficulty communicating with people or talking with people because of the new way in which we live. That's a symptom that belies a little bit of stuff underneath. So now you can start to think about the stuff that's underneath some of that, that systemic row, that underlying current, those two cells in the Wizards and Gaming column. You're going to have stuff like maybe there are hiring practices, maybe there's issues with how they produce cards or think about cards, and maybe also some of the isms, right? Maybe some of racism or misogyny that affects all of our institutions, not just Wizards. And that leads me to the other column, which is that we have in the cell that where systemic and life intersect, we have institutional racism. We have things that a market economy can do and not do. We've got the big problems. That's the stuff. You and I like to go there a lot. We like to go to that cell. Sometimes listeners or viewers of this show, I see the occasional comments, and I can tell the difference between people who get it and the people who don't. The people who tend to get it, not that we're perfect, but the people who get it and understand or crave kind of what we have, our market, if you will, are those people that like spending a little bit of time in that systemic row. They like spending time in the what's really beneath all this. What's going on. So that's the basic things. 4 cells right there.
Right. And certainly we want to focus on the gaming topics, on the magic topics. But we can certainly allude to the real life impacts, right, or the real life reasons or underlying issues.
Right. So to start, now let's take an example of something that really of a common thing. We'll talk about the hybrid just briefly. The hybrid man thing. We're not going to argue it.
Dollar in the jar.
The hybrid.
Dollar in the jar.
Dollar. Ding. I use coin, dollar coin. Right. The hybrid mana piece is a technical interpretation.
Okay.
Right? So when people talk about hybrid mana and they ask, I don't get why you don't like hybrid mana. Hybrid mana works better. It's the way the game works, and you're making me not play it in some way, shape, or form. I'm not going to straw dog it. I'm just going to say, usually that's how it starts, right? I can't put this card in that deck. Darn. That is a technical issue.
Sure.
Okay. Underlying that is a conversation about values and there's a rift in the community about whether or not, and I don't think it's a very large one, but I think it's often well publicized, about what Commander is for. Another example, when CEDH I think was emerging, there was a lot of people who would get upset and still get upset if you show up at a game and you suddenly find, like we talked last week, you suddenly find people all aren't playing the same deck as you in the middle of the game. That's a technical issue. The systemic issue is we didn't have a conversation about it beforehand, and we don't, I'm not part of a community, or they're not part of my community in a way that we need to fix. Okay. So that's the stuff. There's the stuff happening up here, and there's the stuff underneath, and there are different values beneath there. So yeah, and then that stuff you can shift all that stuff in that column. You can make parallels about life, which we sometimes do.
Well, one of the things is it's when you are faced with problems that you want to solve, you can solve some of the symptomatic ones relatively easily. So isn't that the sort of low-hanging fruit to then well, I can make an impact on this problem. I can post to the RC webpage, or hit them up on the Discord, and I can talk about this issue. I can express my opinions, or I can solve it for I can help solve it for my own group, and have that rule zero conversation. So we get focused on those things, the things that are right in front of us, and the systemic stuff seems so distant. And how do we bring ourselves to work on the long-term stuff while we have so much short-term stuff right in front of us?
There's 2 things getting in our way. One of the things getting in our way is that, yes, you're absolutely right. We're distracted. I forget the person who did this quote, distracted by distraction by distraction.
Right.
And it's a quote about social media, essentially. And it's so easy to just be a hummingbird and spend 5 minutes out of here and 5 minutes getting mad about that and 5 minutes getting mad about that. Maybe even less, just 140 characters at a time. And it makes it feel it makes it easy to skip around. At the same time, I actually think that there are more people than ever, and you you are part of the problem. You're doing the right thing, but by making yourself so available, people believe they can get at it. Like Sheldon, it's an easy issue to fix. Just change the hybrid mana rule. We're done, right? Like there's that level of access makes it, and the technology we use and the kind of forms we have now make it really easy to mistake technical and these more systemic adaptive style issues. We mistake hybrid mana, planeswalkers and things, maybe this one little thing that ticks us off as something that's just fix it. Just go off and fix it. It's, there's an internet that to help you, and Google can help you, and lots of technology and robots can just help you, and we'll just fix it. And that's not, so we're making we're falling prey to two things at once, at least. One of which is just the idea that there is that we can do everything in 30 seconds and be done with it. And the second thing being that if we just spend 30 seconds on it, we can somehow fix it. These are moral hazards that we sometimes face. You represent a moral hazard, sir. You are so friendly and outgoing that you actually represent an opportunity for people to suck your time and suck the community's time into conversations over and over again. You should not stop what you're doing, but the moral hazard is there.
We also get the conflation of issues, right? We get systemic issues confused for technical issues and vice versa, or even worse. Well, why are you spending your time solving this technical issue when there are so many systemic issues to face?
Right. And it's a fair question, and it's okay to spend time on technical issues. There's nothing wrong with saying to yourself, how am I going to deal with the fact that I can't fit this hybrid mana card into this deck? Well, I can either talk to my group or I can just put it in a different deck, right? Like there's technical fixes to technical problems. By all means, solve technical problems. Talk about technical problems. If Companion comes out and it ticks you off, talk about Companion. Tell Wizards. They survey us all the time. Lots of customer surveys get at technical issues all the time. Did you like this? Did you not like that mechanic? Did it draft well? Did it not draft well? Did Commander 2020 thrill you, or did it not thrill you? I mean, these are all kind of things that are happening in sort of a market research kind of way, and they should be addressed, and they should be solved to the extent they're problems. And then it's also okay to spend time on the more substantive stuff. All I'm asking for, and I think all you're asking for, is awareness, right? Just be aware. Just know what bin you're in a little bit here. What bin are you operating in? What world are you operating in? Because I hate seeing people get continuously, repeatedly disappointed because they're putting themselves in the wrong column. They think they're struggling with Wizards, like I just think, or the rules committee or whoever. It's just an easy fix. Just do the thing. Ban this, don't ban that, unban this, unban that. Just do what I would do and everything will be fine. And that's not the level of engagement that's going to get the issue fixed. And you're going to feel like you're pounding a brick wall sometimes. You're not going to realize what the wall is. There are enough brick walls in our society. There are enough systemic issues in our society. Don't add more. Don't do that to yourselves. If you're going to fight that hard, fight for the things that are deeper.
I think one of the problems is that people want simple solutions, and sometimes there are simple there are simple solutions to sometimes technical issues that don't then translate to simple solutions to systemic ones. Okay, so technical issue. Somebody in a forum says something horribly misogynistic to somebody else in the forum.
Right.
That's a technical issue that you can solve short term.
Ban them.
Yeah, right. You either
turn them off, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You call them out. You tell them that's not acceptable behavior here, so forth and so on. That's not going to solve the systemic issue of any of the isms.
Right.
Right. It's not going to. It's probably not going to solve.
They're still going to be a jackass. You're right.
But in most cases, in most cases, when you use the word just do this, just do that, I think you're selling short the idea that problems are often complex and nuanced, and you have to then have complex and nuanced solutions to them.
Often, yes, absolutely. Everything can be taken to extremes. Sometimes there are simpler problems. I mean, once you get enough technocrats in a room, you can, everybody believes the problem is super nuanced, and everybody wants their nuance to be the nuance that everybody nuances on. And you can get into its own everything in moderation, right?
Uh-huh.
But yes, the primary issue, and something I think we're seeing, to slide columns just briefly away from gaming and Wizards into real life, we're seeing a lot of, every time you sense a little bit of anti-intellectualism in the room, every time you get a little whiff of that, what you're seeing is people who don't want to just do that thing. Just, if you don't want me to wear a mask, just stay home. If you don't like this, then just have a party and just have a fun. It's just kids. Right. You're right. Yeah. Just is a telling word. It suggests that there are simpler solutions to problems. On the other hand, there are occasionally problems where we need to cut through the garbage and just do a thing. For example, we could get back to the gaming and Wizards just needs to focus more quickly and definitively on hiring diversity and making certain statements. There are some things that are simpler than they seem that they could be doing. So I don't want to make it sound like an apology for any company to take longer than they should to do the right thing. Some things they could be doing that are systemically problematic, we could be making. You can still make tangible progress. You can still hit milestones on your way to solving a very thorny problem. You have a big massive brush in front of you and no way to get through it. How are you going to clip through it? One branch at a time, one thing at a time. You're just going to have to hack through it. You got to get started.
So I mean, we since we don't have a glaring at least this week, we don't have a glaring technical issue in front of us. Let's suggest something for helping with the systemic issues. What can you and I do, sort of right here, right now, to help with some of the isms that might be creeping into or have crept into our culture, into our gaming culture?
I have a 10-point strategic plan, Sheldon.
Nice.
I don't have one of those.
Alonji 2020.
It's okay. There are. We'll go with the guy. We'll go with the challenger as he stands. There are an awful lot of these big problems come with a lot of despair, right? You look at them and, like I just said, it's like looking at a huge hedge and like an enormous thicket of stuff, and all you've got is a pair of like little hand clipper things, and you're like, what can I do? Right. So the first thing to do is to realize that you're not the only one standing there. There are other people around you and around us. Right. And this hedge got there either because a bunch of people planted it or a bunch of people let it grow, or use whatever metaphor you like. But this thing didn't get there just because of one person. So it's not going to get solved just by one person. So thing one is realize that what you got around you, what we've got around us. We have an entire community. We have people who have had experiences that you and I haven't had, who can really help us think about these things, who can teach us. We've got people who are energized. We've got people on the inside of Wizards. We've got people outside of Wizards. We've got consultants. We've got, content creators. We've got, to wrap up a lot of different things from past shows. We've been talking a lot about resources and people and conversations that really can move the ball forward. And I believe that we are making progress. So thing one is just to let go of the despair. And then the thing two is to pick a goal, a measurable goal that we can have. And you can pick a couple. You can pick one long-term and one short-term, and then think about that short-term goal as being a milestone on the way to a long-term goal. So, we're going to work together to help Wizards use less racist practices in their hiring and such. And what's one thing that we can do to do that? Some of us might say, I'm going to use a market signal. I'm going to reduce my purchases by this much, and I'm going to talk about it on a show, and I'm going to push that for a little bit, and I'm going to keep myself on a personal goal that I can have a tangible. I know that I'm contributing toward it, and I'm helping others. Others might say, I'm going to hold a series of conversations, community conversations. I'm going to invite Wizard staff to participate, and I'm going to do X, Y, Z on this topic, and I'm going to invite them. I'm going to use my heft that way. Or you might have somebody else out there that says, maybe a Wizard staff might say, I'm going to use my voice to do this. I'm going to get authorization from my company so I don't get fired. But I'm going to make sure I'm going to do X, Y, and Z in the near future. Individual goals build up, if we were talking to each other and we're communicating, a lot of different individual goals build up in one collective goal. Everybody's got their little pair of hedge clippers. Everybody starts clipping at the hedge a little bit, and before you know it, you've made it something more manageable.
Yeah, that's progress. It's a fine point that there are times that people see a problem and they think they're the only person that sees a problem, and they scream into the void emotionally, and all they need to really do is just talk to their communities and say, hey, I've noticed this thing. I mean, going out and raging is sometimes not going to be the way to get anything solved. Sometimes, unfortunately, raging is the only thing that solves a problem. But I think that's communal rage, not individual. Individual rage isn't really going to get you anywhere. But if you talk to the other people in your community and go, I don't like this thing that's happening, and there are going to be other people in the community who go, yeah, you're right. You know what? I don't like that thing happening either. I thought I was the only one. And then you get a groundswell, and suddenly we're in this world where there are a bunch of people saying, no, we're not going to take it anymore. No, this is not what we want. And, especially for some of us like me and you, we didn't actually realize the depth to which we were benefiting from a system that didn't seem to have problems. Right. And then
or seem to be looking like they were actively addressing it when in fact less so. Yeah. I agree.
So using our communal voices is the right call. And again, talking to people, what can we do? Hey, we want to help foster this change, or we want to tell the company that we understand that you said that you're aware of this issue. We want to follow up and make sure you're actually doing something about it.
Right. The most potent examples I've seen of using social media properly, and they cross over. I'm going to say this explicitly. They cross over and they use a tone that I wouldn't use, and I'm not the tone police. I mean, I think that's actually kind of the point. They are pushing because they represent minorities or other groups that have been historically underrepresented, and I think it's right and proper for them to push for it. There have been some sterling examples of, my story with Wizards, or my story engaging with, X institution. These are powerful stories, and the use of social media has been very powerful in changing and shaping some of the conversations that are having. The phase that we are probably in right now is, are we maintaining that energy? I mean, a person can tell their story multiple times, but they can only tell their story for the first time once, right? At that with that level of exposure, boom, it hits. The story hits. It circulates. It goes all over Twitter. It's the right thing to see. It's not the stuff described inside of it, but the action of holding them accountable is the right thing to see. And now this is where we get into the difference between technical and adaptive again, or technical and systemic, where we say, okay, so for us to actually change things, we can't just do something. We're back on this. How are we going to maintain over the long term? And that's why I use that long term thing. This hedge is huge, right? And we do only have, each of us right now, hand clippers, and maybe sometime we'll get better equipment. But right now we're still, and it gets tiring, right? Your hand goes, do we have to keep doing this? You look around you and you're like, well, so-and-so is sitting down and I don't see them really clipping anymore. So I think I'm just going to take a break myself. And before you know it, boom, there's something else over there. Oop, squirrel. And now we are on a different, maybe it's a technical issue, maybe it's hybrid mana, right? I think this is what frustrates a lot of people in the MTG community, is that it's like, just last week we were talking about, George Floyd, being murdered by cops. And then we were talking about the things inside, say, the birding community or the Magic community or the others that lead to these kinds of behaviors, microaggressions that lead up to big aggressions and all these other things. We were talking about all that. And now, we're starting to And what I appreciate about you, Sheldon, because you do, you do obviously choose the main topics for our show, is that we're not, I hope we're not, I hope viewers don't believe that we're losing focus. I hope that people understand that we're still here trying to make that difference, trying to use our own voices to elevate this conversation and to explain how to stay focused on it. In other words, and I think the bottom line moral story of the show is, look, if you want a community that talks mostly about these technical issues, you can have that. We're not here to tell you what conversations to have. If you want to actually solve some of these problems, not only do you need to keep the conversations focused on these things, but you need to match your actions to them, and you need to have sustained action. That is what we keep asking wizards for. That is what you and I need to hold ourselves accountable and each other for. And the actions we are taking. It could be donations. It can be it can be marching. It can be calling legislators. It can be running for office. It can be working to support other candidates in office that will make the change we want to see. There's lots of different ways of doing it. We've talked about this.
Well, even bringing
those
the
are all
focus
still in play.
Even bring the focus back to our community. This show is about the commander community, and we can make sure that we continue doing the things for our community that are important. Maybe some of the bigger picture things will have a trickle down effect into our community, but we have to remember to focus on our things, that the things that matter to us. And I think it's important in this particular discussion, or in the current environment that we're in, that people like you and I make sure that we are supporting change, fomenting change, doing what we can to engender change without it becoming about us. The people in the hegemonic group who want things to change, those of us who have all this privilege and wouldn't mind giving up some of it, or creating a place where there is very little privilege. We have to make sure that this is about get this thing done, not look at me how woke I am.
Right.
And I worry about that sometimes on social media. It's like, I want to support this cause, but I don't want to deflect attention from the cause onto me. In the end, I think you support the cause. You don't worry about who might misinterpret it.
Right. I think if you were forced to make a choice, I think and I'll let others evaluate your effectiveness at that. I as another white guy can't probably do a very good job of judging how you as a white guy are doing and speaking up for others. I'll let other more capable voices rate you. But what I appreciate is seeing that when something comes to your attention that you have authority over, right? What we're going to do about this set of cards that's problematic. What are we going to do about this individual in this room? What are we going to do about the game that I'm playing and the community we're building and this particular person acting in a certain way? Just being that consistent in that voice of leadership, I think there's nobody could realistically have an issue if they want to. If you were to grandstand, which I think is kind of what you're talking about, a little. So you're like, I don't think that. But what I try to do, one of the rules I've tried to maintain is I follow, I'm sure you do too, multiple voices from different diverse groups and stuff. And I have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, maybe a half dozen, working on a dozen. I'm trying to get something that I really enjoy following. Once I keep digging. I'm maybe following 1 or 2 new people each day from different backgrounds. I think I'm curating lists. I'm checking things out. And I'm trying to do, because I do all my talking here, right?
Right.
Most of my talking. But I try to do is watch how many times they tweet per day. And I pick one of them and I try to tweet that many times minus 2 or 3, right? About those issues. Not because I want to do less than them, but because I want their voices to be elevated. If I have something else I want to say that they're saying, I'll retweet them. I'll push them. I might make a little comment in the front saying, "Boy, is this a great point," or something like that. But otherwise, I don't go on and on and on. I don't do a thread saying, "Hey, here's a tweet thread that I think is really awesome. Let me give you a thread about why I think it's awesome." I mean, that's the wrong way, I think.
Right.
What's nice is see thread, or
Yeah.
wow, what, I'm so glad I follow this voice now. I encourage all of you to follow this person. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that I think if we're going to put social media together with the technical and systemic stuff we talked about, I can take a technical step. People who follow me maybe aren't as up on these voices. Maybe I'm not as up on these voices as we all should be. Technical problem, technical fix. Get it out there. Retweet. Start to address the fundamental conversation and the fact that we don't have as many Black voices, BIPOC voices in general out there on the internet and in our community. We can make some small differences. We can clip at that hedge. One of several things that we could do. Many things we could be doing. That's just one example.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
not the sum strategy.
Do everything. I think it behooves us to do everything that we can to amplify those voices. Right. The voices that are already loud enough don't need the amplification. When they make great points, that's not to say ignore great content or great thoughts from this this dominant group, but support and amplify the voices that don't get amplified so much. And it's tough sometimes because when somebody makes a good point, I don't want to I want to agree with it. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't want anybody to think that they should be agreeing with it because I'm agreeing with it. That it doesn't need the stamp. That woman doesn't need this white guy's approval to express her opinion. Right. Or
but you've said this before though. You've solved your own problem. What the hell's wrong with you, Sheldon? And then you answer your own problem. I've seen you say some variant of, this is a voice we should all listen to. Right. And I think that in and of itself, go ahead and be the wise old white guy. I mean, I think there is a role for us. And I think we've been asked in the recent literature and in the recent conversations, we've been asked to do some of this and to not and to elevate these voices in ways and to be that group of white guys who say, I hereby transfer some of the power that I have over some of you to this person, and to say, here it is, and here is her, here is him, here are them. They are here for us, and to do that every time that we retweet purposefully, not just retweet. I like that, but retweet purposefully, and we say, I really want to make. One way I think I should maybe start saying is, I wish I could give up more of my power to this person. Tell me how, I'll do it. Like if I could just have this person be the spokesperson for my segment too, not just any one segment, but my segment. Like, I believe in them. This is letting people know publicly that you believe in them. I think, Sheldon, I think you have a lot of, I've limited, and you have a lot more and a lot more current. And I encourage you to feel okay about it. And also, let's revisit an old theme of our show, which is one way to find out if it's okay is to talk to people who represent those groups, have private conversations with them, and ask them about it. Maybe direct message the person who tweets the thing you love and say, I really love this. Do you mind if I, spread that word a little bit? And I'm sure.
Or how can I further? How can I further?
How can I help? Yeah. How can I help? Who wouldn't love a direct message? It'd be like getting your own virtual bacon. Call back. See, those of you that don't watch our show, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. You got to keep up on the episodes.
The bacon references are going to get strong, aren't they?
They are. Why not? Yeah. But it is like it's like how cool to hear. I still get a little thrill when we call each other, Sheldon. How cool would it be for somebody who's never had the opportunity? I know you have only so many hours in the day. That's the point. To spend some of that precious time that you have contacting them. I know that you do this to an extent already. It's how sometimes you find our content contributors of the week, our community contributors of the week. But I just think it's the right path. That's all I'm saying. Is I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. I'm trying to tell you, I think it's powerful. I think it's awesome if and when.
Yeah, but I think you're coming dangerously close to then once again making it about me. And
there's no way out of the trap that white men have set themselves, right? There's no easy way. We're gonna, we gotta chew our leg off.
Right. Well,
it's gonna be bloody. It's gonna suck. Sometimes it's gonna be painful, but we put ourselves here and we benefited from others putting us here. And okay. So yeah, you're gonna feel some discomfort. I'm gonna feel some discomfort when I do it. And I just think we suck it up and we just go and we do it. And we'll listen to those voices, mostly those voices from those communities, but those individual conversations, almost like rule zero, those individual conversations you have with the voices you want to elevate. If you talk to them, of course, how could we go wrong?
How could we go wrong?
That's not an answer. I don't want you to go find all the ways you could do it wrong, Sheldon. It's not a challenge.
All right. I mean, so to wrap up, let's just not let one crisis divert us from doing what we can to solving the underlying problems that we've identified in our communities. I think sometimes staying strong on a path that you're on is making sure that you step back on whenever you get bumped off.
Right. And speaking of changing topics, speaking of changing topics, we will move on. We will change topics, but then we will come back to this. People know, but we will come back to this topic time and time again, and until and unless we continue to see systemic change. But that said, magic is about the gathering, right? And here in Commander Community, we do like to recognize those who go above and beyond to making the gathering worth it.
Most of the time, we try to recognize folks that you might not have otherwise heard of, as Anthony earlier alluded to. We're going to flip the script this time and go really big. This week, we're going to pick friend of the show, Commander Advisory Group member, and 5-tool threat, Olivia Gobert Hicks.
5-tool threat, yeah. More like one woman wrecking crew.
I know, right? Olivia streams several times a week, guests on other streams, does coverage for online events, and supports the community in every way imaginable, both quietly and with a very big voice. She's an advocate of inclusion and diversity. I probably could say a very aggressive advocate.
Right. And she's been valuable to you on the community advisory group too, as well.
Yeah, absolutely invaluable. A story that she tells pretty frequently was about the first conversation that she and I had barely a year ago, just over a year ago, in Roanoke, as a matter of fact, at SCGCon. Okay. And it was at the Sunday night after party. And she was there, and I introduced myself, and we started chatting a little bit about the CAG and what she thought of the idea. And her first question to me was, why wasn't it 100% women?
Right.
And I'm like, okay, we have a live one, right? Just the way that there was no nonsense about her from the beginning. And we had a relatively actual nuanced conversation after it again, she is sometimes very forward and aggressive, but don't let that belie the very deep and layered intellect that lies under the surface there, because she's one smart cookie, and I think we need a lot more people like her.
Yeah, she's the type of assertive conversation contributor that I just really enjoy engaging with. I've had not nearly as many opportunities as you've had. I can't wait to engage her and others who think and speak like her, and with that same style of, let's just call things what they are.
Yes.
Sometimes this gets mistaken for extroversion or aggressiveness. I mean, we have lots of little words that have connotations that are not so great, especially when they're attributed to women.
Yes.
And what I like about the way she does what she does, and you and I think we've married people like this, and I think we have friends that are like this. I mean, I think of all genders and all gender identities, and I think that it's awesome to be around no matter what. That energy is what creates change. People who want to know, how do you get past the technical changes and get to the systemic change, you need voices. We need voices like hers to be at the table all the time, or we're never going to get there. We're always going to be engaged in polite conversations, maybe not so polite conversations about technical surface issues, and everybody's going to be looking around saying, "Well, I don't want to offend anybody, but I think there's a bigger elephant here." Right. She's going to be like, "Look at the elephant. Right. Is anybody going to move the elephant?" I'm a fan. I'm an enormous fan.
Okay. All right. So thanks to Olivia for being our community contributor of the week.
We do recognize that there are so many of you who might be listening and watching who either are, who represent, or who know somebody who would be a wonderful community contributor of the week. We can't wait to hear about them. Please let us know at the Twitter handles below our faces. And we will reach out to that person. If it's you, we'll reach out to you. If it's somebody we'll reach out to them and we'll ask them, if they'd like to be featured. It's a pretty simple process, simple application process. Right. Anybody can do it. We're waiting. We can't wait to focus the next person and to just get the full complexity of the community out.
There are so many wonderful people in our community doing so many great things that it's relatively easy to say a simple thank you to them.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right. So, our mandate here, we have a mandate, Sheldon. We have the right, we have the responsibility to talk about the community. We'd also like to talk about the actual game. I know you have lots of shows where you could talk about Magic and all that, but every once in a while, I like to talk about Magic too. And don't I get to have a show? And
fair.
We're going to talk about the show. It is fair, but it's also fine. What I really like doing is I like talking a little bit about the game, but in the context of how the community sees it. Sure. And this is one of those great topics there. We get to talk about there are cards out there that in styles that are they're more or less fun or communal in the game. And we want to explore some of what cards and mechanics and styles makes Magic more of a community game.
Yeah, Anthony and I certainly have our own ideas, but for this segment, we crowdsourced some answers. I don't think we got anything too surprising, but there were certainly a few big points that we were going to hit. The first one that came up quite frequently was Monarch. Monarch makes for a fun game.
Yeah, the idea of the idea that you are encouraging attacking. In the middle of a commander game. It shouldn't have been, I don't think it was revolutionary. I do think that the game, as of a few years ago, was starting to bend a little bit more toward the big, huge, stay back, sit behind your walls, work your thing. The risk, perhaps, was developing of being less and less interactive. Combat's one of the ways in which you are almost guaranteed interactivity. And by encouraging combat in the middle of a 4-player multiplayer commander game, Wizards, with a very technical change, is one of those technical changes they made. They added a new thing. And all of a sudden, you start to see more decks develop and more enthusiasm around the idea of attacking an opponent. You start to get at a more substantive issue underlying the commander format. I really like Monarch. It was a great choice by our community.
And I think one of the meta points we're going to see as we discuss the things that the community brought up were one of the words that you used, interactivity. The involvement in the game is what makes a more fun game for everybody involved. It doesn't matter I always say that it doesn't matter if I win the game or not. I want everybody to have done some stuff and then something cool to have happened. And if that is what happens, then it doesn't matter who wins. Because I think,
agreed.
I don't want to go back to we've all won. But, it is, you can certainly define winning in more ways than one. And I think that, it seems almost tautological that you say, well, the best community experience is when the community gets involved, everybody in the community is involved. Well,
the best community experience is when the entire community experices the thing, right?
And which is the again,
it's tautological, but I like it. It's still quote worthy.
Yeah, we did on the RC stream a few weeks back. We did a game where we started with the Monarch in play, and the person that did the first combat damage was the first Monarch. If I remember correctly. it wasn't Toby that got it first, but I think he got it and held onto it for some reason. Like suddenly there were a bunch of not profitable attacks, but that's the mechanic. But I like the idea of playing this. It's certainly a variant that I would be happy with, because again, it gives it gives you a different path. And it's only a card, and you definitely have to evaluate it, because if you're the monarch, that means somebody's going to want to attack you. And you can certainly build around the idea, or you can just swing with your mana dork to draw a card.
Right. I still the original Marquesa is to me one of my favorite decks that I've created. The Grixis colors, and I spend that entire game giving other people the monarchy and trying not to be the monarch, and it's actually a rush deck that tries to just bring everybody down, like try to bring everybody down as much as possible, as quickly as possible, and then whatever happens in the last, when we're all under 5 life, whatever happens. And it's a blast. It's fun. I mean, their cards, the recent reprints and cards that are good. Grim Tutors are great in it. There are lots of other things, Covenant of Fire, and you just get these cards that just kind of come spilling out, that suddenly you're like, I pay life to do this thing, and all of a sudden it's a nice thing. And there was a combo win it once. I took it out. There's Triskelion, whatever thing. Okay, that's fine. But most of the time it has won. If it does win, I don't remember how many times it's won or not won, but I can tell you that 90 to 95% of the time, there is nobody over 10 life or 12 life by the time the game is over. We are all wondering what's going to happen next. It's fun. It's neat.
Maybe
it's
there's
interactive.
maybe there's some design space here. I'm dreaming up cards while you're talking there about giving the monarch the monarch away. Maybe an artifact that's the power behind the throne, and when you activate it, someone who isn't you becomes the monarch, and then you get some benefit for it anyway. Whenever the monarch draws a card, you draw a card, or
exactly. There's a lot of design space there. Wizards really, this is one of those things where I just I love that they did it. I love that they continue to support it. They're not hammering it into the ground, right? It tends to come out with Commander products and the occasional other thing, reprint or something. But I like it a lot. So, well, what else is out there that it's not just not just about the monarchy, as America once told England. It's not just about the monarchy. Sheldon.
One of the other categories that came up was the sort of voting and group decision kind of cards, whether that's Will of the Council, or as low as getting the group to make the split on a fact or fiction. So folks like bringing the whole table into making a decision about a card or a group of cards.
And that's why Expropriate is the best Commander card. No, I obviously Expropriate's less fun. The only fun thing about it, let's just say, is the fact that I guess people vote. But yes, the general idea of voting, the general idea of decisions, talking a little bit about the game state, everything in moderation. Of course, sometimes I'll be sitting there, I'll just like, just split the cards already. It's a fact or fiction. It's not, it's not your children. We need to move along, but I do like. It encourages threat assessment, right? We talk about like proper threat assessment and saying like who is the biggest threat, but also what might be the biggest threat. Right. What cards and sequence of cards might represent the biggest block or barrier to my strategy. And sometimes you want to tell the table what that is, and sometimes you don't. And I like the cards like this that do that. So that was, and then there's also cards out there, Sheldon. There's also the group hug cards, right? The mana flares and the what have yous, the Feldegriffs.
Responses were mixed on group hugs because I think there's this giant group hug dichotomy of thought. Like some people are like group hug, and some people are like, oh my goodness, group hug. And it can it can change things, and I think just there's a lot of people who think that group hug just lets the people who are leaning toward breaking things break it faster and easier, and not doing what the idea of group hug is, sort of bringing everybody more toward the middle.
To truly hug.
To truly hug.
I have the basic rule here. It's a lot less abstract than the stuff we were talking about earlier, Sheldon. Here's the rule on group hug. If you are sitting immediately to the left of the player playing group hug, you love it. If you're sitting immediately to their right, you hate it.
Right.
because you get that last turn. I benefited so many times from somebody to my right, if that happens to be the turn order. Somebody from my right playing that group hug deck, and then boom, I'm off like a rocket. And I think that's certainly an understandable thing to feel, and I definitely feel the opposite when I'm on the other side. I'm like, oh man, you're watching all this stuff happen, and then you're trying to figure out what to do next. So that helps. I also think part of the problem with group hug, to the extent that has any problem, is that some people say, oh, it's a group hug deck, but it's not really. Right. It's not really. Like, you're making everybody draw cards because you're gonna cost them later. You're gonna deck them or whatever. It's not really group hug. It's okay to say that your deck has a group hug phase, but if my deck's going through a group hug phase right now, but it'll grow out of it, right? That's maybe something that might be more accurate to say.
Look, Anthony, in college we all experimented with group hug.
We all group hugged.
Forced fruition is not a group hug card.
Right, I agree.
Right. So, I think your point is right that that you see group hug cards coming, and group hug player was like, here's a Howling Mine, or here's a Rites of Flourishing, and the person to the left is great. Let me do all this stuff, and then blow up the Howling Mine.
Right. Like I said, if you're the last player, you're like, I'm never going to benefit from this.
Thanks. Yeah. So the jury is out on whether group hug actually makes a better communal experience or not. I think just this depends which side of the fence that you sit on. There was also a lot of support for cards that change the paradigm of how the game is played. Cards like Dream Halls, Oath of Druids, and Confusion in the Ranks that upend the game structure.
Right, the rule breakers. I'm a little bit more fond of Oath of Druids and cards where you don't know where the controller doesn't know what's going to happen, and I gotta say, Dream Halls. Yeah. We all know how that can get abused. But with that said, I mean, sometimes it can also be played honestly. I loved Confusion in the Ranks when it first came out, like back in Onslaught, right? And quickly after a few games became less enchanted with it because lots of token generators can make things really messy. A less messy version I really like, what I like is Possibility Storm. And a lot of people don't, and I don't. Yeah. Like I don't get, like, what's the big deal? Like, I don't like it if the person takes and goes, well, oh, look at this card. Oh, that card's not an artifact. Let me look at the next card. But just take 20 off the top and just go bam, bam, bam. Yeah. Like, until you get it. If you do 2 at once, it's okay. Whatever. Yeah. Like, just do the thing quickly. And if you play it technically, as quickly as you can, manual dexterity, if it's available to you, of course, then you can have a lot of fun with it. And I really like the idea of taking a game at upends. It's in my Atali deck, Possibility Storm. And it's one of my favorite game changer cards because it just solves. It's a red solution to enchantments. It's like they're going to play an enchantment, but who knows what enchantment they're going to play. Maybe you'll hate it. Maybe you'll love it. Think of the possibilities. There's a storm of them. Yeah. Right. So I just have to say, I really do enjoy that card, and I get why this category of cards is represented.
Yeah, but I think chaos again is a little like group hug. A little bit of is good. Yeah. All of it, all the time. If you're rolling a D100 to see which dice you're going to roll to make a choice, then I think things have gone a little too far.
Right, to see who's going to make the choice as to who's going to roll a dice to get what permanent out of the big stack of Thieves Auction stuff you just put in the middle of the table. Yeah, you may have a problem.
Imagine playing Thieves Auction on webcam.
Would rather not, thank you.
I played my Amanatu deck the other night on stream, but It was Tuesday.
What the hell is wrong? Thank you for giving me that opening. Wow.
It was last Tuesday on Olivia's stream, and I said, if Jeremy can play Villainous Wealth on stream, I'm playing my damn Amanatu deck. Now, I probably wouldn't have altered it. I was a turn away from doing it, and it would have probably been a game winner, so we could have probably scooped up from there. But yeah, be careful. You have to be careful, and sometimes really funny jokes get less funny each time you tell them.
Right, just tell the joke once, maybe once, and if somebody else told the same joke earlier that night, maybe don't tell that same joke.
Yeah.
Kids, stay in school.
We haven't said that, we haven't said that in a while.
We haven't said, distance, stay in distance school.
Right.
Wear a mask.
Yeah.
And don't play
and play your fogs. Yeah. Instead of stay in school, how about we say continue your education?
Continue your education. Yes, please.
Now, in the same vein as the paradigm shifters, is plane chase, and there are a lot of people that really love plane chase.
I like it myself, and there's even variants on plane chase. I know you're going to talk about one in a moment, but just the basic plane chase version, I know that I think the reason it doesn't get played more often, a part of it is the chaos over and over again does. It's also, limited edition. It's a little bit difficult to get a hold of.
Sure.
To get enough of it. And it also, I think, to a certain extent, it can be like it really does. It's high. Chaos is chaos, right? There's chaos and there's chaos. High variability to the experience, depending on what plane you end up with and how many times you have to roll the darn dice to get off of it. Mm-hmm. So it can swing a lot, but boy, I do like playing it like once every. The local store we were. Pre-COVID, you could catch about once a month. Mm-hmm. You could easily catch a plane chase game there. It's nice. Yeah, I like it a lot. And there are variants on it that you've explored.
Yeah, the Blind Eternities map is fun. Mm-hmm. So when I was scripting this and I was reading some of the responses, a variant occurred to me that combines plane chase and the Monarch. Mm-hmm. And the only time you can roll the planar die is if you're the Monarch. Mm-hmm. Or if you're the Monarch, you can, and you're playing on the Blind Eternities map, you choose which plane to jump to when you roll. So
my first reaction to that literally was, what the hell's wrong? When I read that on social media. Could you not, but I won't say that here. No, edit that out. Would you not be setting up a deck to lock the table down on a plane? I mean, once you're the Monarch and you decide to roll a planar die and you can put yourself where you want to go, why would you ever let anybody off?
Yeah.
You're the Monarch.
Right. Well, then they got to take the Monarch away from you. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the idea needs to be well more thought through than I actually thought through it.
But I got the point.
It sounded
worth exploring.
It sounded like a fun idea. Okay, Anthony, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You have to pick a single card that you think is the most fun for a communal setting, that brings the most fun to a game. I mean, you already said Possibility Storm, so you've got that.
Possibility Storm's up there. So let me take a card that's the two opposite colors and is out of Unstable, right?
Okay.
And I have a Grand Calcutron deck.
Okay.
And I only play it once in a while because it's high variability. Grand Calcutron is fun for I think everybody because it's not. I don't try to break it or anything. Mm-hmm. I think even breaking it's a little bit difficult. But I had Grand Calcutron and Split Screen. So I had 4 decks that I had, and where I'm going with this is Split Screen is just a riot because you have 4 decks and you're just looking at it, and you can break that I suppose if you want to. I have a couple of cards that make it a little bit easier, but I just think it's like, to me, you're looking at this thing and everybody's got their hands open and all this information is just out there and everybody's just sort of looking at the board stage saying, I don't know what's a piece of your library, what's my hand,
Right.
it's just kind of, it's a joke you tell once every few months,
Right.
and then you put it away. But I kind of like, I'm thinking of that. But gun to my head, possibility storms kind of
Yeah.
to me is kind of
We
the most
played.
fun.
We played week before last, I think, or maybe even last week. Gavin finally broke out his Grand Calcatron deck on the
Yeah.
RC stream, and the number of swear words that were emitted were large when people realized that they had screwed up how they ordered the
Yeah, the
program.
program's wrong. It's the best. And I love it. And they're not. But the thing is, they're not upset at you,
Right.
because you could write the program differently. It's your program, your
Yeah.
deck. Just make your choices, more thoughtfully, like a
Well,
white blue player would.
I mean, and the good news is when you put a new card in your hand, you can put it anywhere in your program. So
Yeah.
you get there. But yeah, I think Scott screwed up one of his orders and sort of locked himself out of playing things. So he had to take but I think at that point he had enough stuff on the board that he took the player removal route instead of the permanent removal.
Right. Yeah. Red has permanent removal.
Right.
I mean, just get rid of the player. It's gone.
The card I want to play with for the most group roaring is Coveted Jewel.
Nice.
It's from a commander set. It draws you cards. It gives you stuff, but it also gives other people stuff, and they're motivated to steal it from you. And of course, I play it in my Ruhan deck, so when they try to steal it from me, then I can have them do it to themselves.
Right. Right.
But just in general, just slapping it out there and letting people, because again, you steal it from me, I'm probably not going to. I might not try to steal it back from you. I want to watch the other two people jockey to steal it from you.
Right. Yeah. How are you going to use it?
Right.
Without giving it to somebody else.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it could be fun, or it could be, strategic, or it could be both. And I do like it a lot. Yeah. Very nice.
Good.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I was heartened by the amount of response from people who said, oh, here are some great ways that we have fun, that we make sure that our whole group has fun playing in a game. So that was really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. We're going to do stuff like this again. I got Sheldon to sign a contract in blood saying that he will at least once every 2 or 3 weeks continue to get out there and as crowdsource, if you will, some answers. So if you're not connected with Sheldon, here's a good opportunity to do so. If you're not connected with me, I'll definitely be engaged in those conversations as well. We'd love to hear your voice when you're responding to these things. Please keep an eye out for them, and also. Give us your craziest, wildest ideas, and
always
we'll feature them best we can.
Well, there's always plenty of work to be done in the Commander community, but it's time for us to wrap this episode. If you're watching us on YouTube, please remember to follow, like, subscribe, and ring those bells. I would hate for you to miss the opportunity to hear Anthony ask me what the hell is wrong with me. Anthony, will you tell these folks where they can find you on social media?
I too would hate people to miss that too. I am available on Twitter at Anthony A. Alonji. I'm available on Facebook at Anthony Alonji.
I'm on Twitter and Facebook by my name. That's Sheldon Menery. Please tune into my other show, The Command Share, every Thursday here on Star City Games and on YouTube, where one of the other RC members and I sit down and talk about the deep parts of the game. Also on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern in the U.S., you can catch the four of us on the Commander RC on our Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/Commander RC. And you never know who's going to come up and be a guest on Game 2.
Never know it. You never know. It's unknowable.
It's unknowable, just like who's going to get the bacon.
Nobody knows.
Then finally on Sundays, you can find me right here writing about the best format in Magic history. As always, I'm Sheldon Menery.
And I'm Anthony Alonji. Thank you for sharing your community with us.